of celebration they was having, and every town was supposed to do something. So they started that German Fest. They had that polka band and stuff up there at the hall. That was the German Fest that started, hell, it was about 73 or 4. And they had polka music for, hell, 2 or 3 years at the hall. And they'd bring in this band from New Braunfels or whatever and play that damn polka music. And then those kids, they needed something for the kids to do is what really kind of started this thing. They come out here and decided to get a keg of beer and have a little party out here at the ballpark. So that was probably about 2 or 3 years into the festival.
But
they started that thing.
They named it Suds and Sounds.
When they did, they came
Bounds and Dwayne Clayman and them.
Herb Gerber and them, they come up with that name, Suds and Sounds.
But it was a deal just for the kids that followed them all year long.
Yeah.
They did appreciation.
They brought some guy in, there was Clovis or somewhere, he was blind. Remember that blind musician used to come here?
I don't remember that.
He just played for dances there. I can't remember his name.
Charlie Phillips?
No, oh, that's older than that. That's too old. That goes back to the 60s.
Him and old Tiny Lynn.
But anyway, it just kind of started on a whim. It wasn't anything really planned, and then it just grew into a fundraiser thing. Concert and all that with it, and the polka deal quit, and no more polka dances. It was stuff out here.
Yeah, but the polka dances would have been held in the downtown area.
They were at the old community hall, not the one we have now, but the old cinder block building back in the 70s.
Yes.
70s. This started in probably about 77, and that started in about 73 or 4 probably. So they had about 2 or 3 years of polka music. Of course, that left out the kids, and this thing, that group of kids and this band we had going, they just decided, hey, we're going to do something here to get. There really was nothing up there during the day or whatever for teenage kids or younger kids.
Right.
It was a meal and this and that, and then the polka dance, and so it was like,
okay.
So that's the kind of the thing that actually got started. It wasn't a planned deal. This band just kind of said, well, let's get a keg of beer and let's go out there to the
Now it's all about having something for the kids to do and not for everybody else.
Yeah, now we have the kids' games and everything else going on.
They got the water deals and all that stuff.
Bouncy houses.
What's that?
The bouncy houses, that type of deal. Yeah. Well, what has happened to the celebration of German heritage? I mean, when I first started coming to these events back in about 2001, and I've come back several times since then, it seems like the emphasis on German heritage has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller every year.
Probably true. We don't dress up in any lederhosen or anything like that. But, they did.
Right.
Back in the polka day when they started, some of them, hell, they wore.
Right.
Well, when they started, there was a lot of people that had a lot of German blood in them. Now we're 3 generations down, more or less.
Right. But I can remember, and I have photographic proof, because when I first started documenting stuff, it was through photography instead of video. But I do have photographic proof of some elderly folks being dressed up in German type clothing from the late 1800s to the early 1900s and putting on living history programs such as soap making, corn shucking, corn grinding, showing off old antique machines, one thing and another.
Roll binder, they was making bundles. They did that. The museum kind of was the function of that. Museum people were kind of putting all that stuff on, and beer making and things.
There's a lot of beer drinkers,
Well, that's just part of German DNA, is it not?
That part is still here. No, some of them old timers that did the bundles and all that stuff.
Right.
They're just
died. And there would be various farm animals like sheep and goats and chickens.
They had little petting zoo.
Right. Which is great for kids. And now, we've got bouncy houses and water slides for kids?
Yeah, that's right.
What does that have to do with German heritage and the heritage of Nazareth as a community?
You're right.
What have we done? Have we just thrown it all away and for what?
Now, Ruckman and them, don't they sit there? Doesn't he put his German vest and stuff on?
I didn't
that
see
built?
him this year. I didn't see him there. They
was on
they
the
wore them
committee.
shorts and that little hat and the suspenders.
And then they made some homemade beer, didn't they?
No, they'd always find a keg of German. They'd find a keg of German Bill, Haldy Girl or something like that, and bring at least one keg of beer in there. But not too many people would drink the stuff, I guess. It was a little stouter kind of beer or something. I didn't even see anything like that there this year. It's all conventional beer that I saw. So yeah, I guess you're right. We've drifted away from that.
Yeah, so German Fest isn't really like a German Fest anymore, other than this section of there might be some German DNA or helping to volunteer, like you fellows are today, and helping
Our
to.
biggest fundraiser of the year to keep the community hall and everything around here going.
Right.
Baseball field.
Baseball, a lot of this donations
Right.
go back to the baseball
Right.
field.
Yeah, once I started seeing the living history demonstrations over by the museum going away.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I just came from the museum. It's not even open today. There's nobody manning it.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Well, once that went away,
Well,
then the
they had
next.
a committee that did that, but it's not very damn active anymore. It's not very active.
Julius and Alan Dubmeyer.
Yeah, they had, like a museum committee, but I don't think they do a whole lot of anything anymore as far as trying to raise funds or whatever. But that was driven by the museum committee. Is what it was driven by.
So the next iteration that I saw several years later was that instead of the living history demonstrations, one thing or another, it kind of turned into like a sausage cooking contest that was downtown. Local residents would compete on awards and whatever, depending on the sausages that they would cook up. And then the last time I came here, there wasn't hardly any of that, and I asked around, well, does anybody make any local sausage or beer anymore? Well, there was some local beer that was being made, and I forget, this was like maybe 3 years ago. But one fellow took me aside and he says, well, I do make up some sausage at home. How much do you want? So I was able to purchase about 10 pounds of homemade sausage. And, well, I've had no luck today finding any at all. So all that's just kind of gone.
Well, they sell the uncooked sausage there at the hall.
What they used to, about a week or so before it, with the hall committee and stuff would get together and they would take a pig over to the butcher and give it to you and have it all made in sausage, and then they'd push it in them rolls and all that. But the thing that made it unique, German, was the way we seasoned it.
Yeah.
And they had a recipe for it. Well, that became cumbersome for different reasons, and they finally just turned the recipe over to Keeter.
Right.
And he just makes it all up over there.
Well, I think he was a little scared about getting inspected or somebody walking in there and him getting caught with all these uncertified workers in there using all this equipment and
That's understandable.
stuffing this sausage and all that. So
That's understandable.
I think it was a directive from him. Hey, if we're going to do this, I'm going to have to make it.
Right.
He even markets his German sausage, but it's our recipe.
Right.
Or it's an old Nazareth recipe.
He got nervous about the inspection thing and the health workers. And,
But they have sausage for sale up there.
It's institutional sausage. I mean, it's sausage that anybody can buy at the supermarket.
Well, no, it's at Keeter's.
This is a little different than his recipe, the one that they started with.
This being a
It's a
roll.
little different. It's a little different.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing happens with other German communities in Texas, like Doherty. Now, I'm out of Amarillo, so I just cover local communities. That basically what they serve up in Doherty seems to be about the same thing that's served here, as far as the the main dinner. Yeah, so we're losing a lot of that uniqueness. Is that due to too much federal government control, you think, putting restrictions?
I just think as one generation moves on, the next one moves in, things change, and they lighten it, and they weaken it, and they
and I think
change it to whatever their whims are.
Whatever they think works, and whatever raises funds, and without a whole lot of concern about is this
They're not
German
really
or
interested in professing German heritage. They're interested in making money.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what
Yeah, and you do what is popular, or what works, or what the people want, or what they'll go for.
With the least work possible. When people were gathering here and enjoying music, one thing and another, I have seen an evolution in how that whole scope of things has changed as well.
Well, the music has gone from country to pop to whatever that is kid directed. I mean, so you don't get very many old folks out here anymore. I mean, we used to have people in the community would come out here that were 40s and 50s, and you won't see that anymore. This is pop.
Yeah.
This is pop music or country pop or whatever you want to call it. It's not the old time country music, and that is again directed to draw the crowd.
Right.
Give them what they want. Give them what draws the crowd.
Would you like to know of a community where that still does happen? Where the old timers and up in their 90s are still out dancing every summer?
But we've got to get a headliner band and pay the money it costs. You got to draw a young crowd.
Right.
If you depended on the old folks here, hell, you wouldn't make $1,000.
Have you heard of the Motley Dickens Old Settlers Reunion?
Oh yeah.
They hire some top bands like Jody Nix to come and play Western swing music, and there are people in their 80s and 90s and down.
That's in the middle of ranch country, and that's a big.
That are still dancing.
Rodeo and a reunion for them two counties that are all mostly ranch related.
Yeah. Now, in the years that I have been attending and talking to some of the people who have attended, I've noticed there's an awful lot of college students that seem to come from Lubbock and Amarillo. They're on their summer break. Most of them are, so it's kind of a summer festival for them. Do you think that is?
School's fixing to start. It's just
the
last part of August, right there before school starts.
Yeah. So is that what has helped shape the change in the music that's being played out here? Do you think?
Sure it is, because you got to play what they're going to come for. And if they know the band, most of these kids that come here tonight have probably heard this same band 2 or 3 different times somewhere, and they like them, so they'll come.
Okay.
And they search that out. What'll draw these kids?
They got a fan club.
My son came home from Abilene and brought 6, 7 people with him.
Yeah.
Come to the fest. So-and-so's playing.
I imagine 90% of the people out there in the baseball field are not homegrown Nazareth.
Oh, no.
And that's what you're drawing in, so you got to present some kind of program that they'll pay for,
Sure.
Right.
They know who's playing, and it's not their first time. This is not the first time to hear this performance.
And then it's just a big old beer drinking party, and they can come here and drink. Nobody's going to bother them as long as they don't get out on that highway out there.
That brings up another thing. In many of the other small community annual events that I have been covering throughout the years, I have noticed a marked change in the way that law enforcement has kind of picked up on this idea where there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of people who are going to be showing up to a place where there's going to be a lot of drinking going on, and they're not from that tiny little community, and when they drive away, we can nail them.
Yeah, that's true. That's why they set up this camper thing. Bring your camper, stay overnight. Don't leave out of here, or bring somebody who's going to drive with you. But they'll still get them anyway.
They encourage them to spend the night.
Right.
But they got a curfew at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Got to be inside the camper.
Yeah.
And then lights out inside the camper.
And all that is saying, hey, if you've been drinking, we don't want you getting out on that highway either.
Right.
So
But yeah, we used to feel like we was getting picked on. You know, they just sit out and wait for somebody to leave, stop them for any damn reason they could find.
Right.
You pulled up 3 foot too far in front of that stop sign.
Right.
Never in an ordinary week or whatever would they ever stop somebody for this, that, or whatever. But they're going to do it that night.
There you go.
They're going to do it that night.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy pickings. Like shooting fish in a barrel.
And they've hauled these miners out of here and whatever. We've raised hell with them, and you better shut up or you're going with us. You know, we don't.
Yeah.
Send him over here. We know this kid. Whatever. No, hell, they got to haul this miner out of here because that's $3,000 or $4,000 for him. You know, whatever. We're gonna get him some change.
I understand.
That's as much to reckon as anything out here.
Well, you know, that doesn't help because that word gets around too to the kids. Like, you know, we can't go down there. We don't want to go down there. We're going to get in trouble. And some of them will. They will every time.
Right. But I noticed last time I was here, which was maybe 3 years ago, there's a lot of folks who are dragging in various trailers, coming in motorhomes. Yeah, there we go.
That's
right.
And we try
so
to
people want to come and have a good time.
Hey, if you know you're going to party around, don't get back out on that road. Give them that opportunity to get you. Come stay.
Right. All right. Well, it's starting to get pretty busy and the music's cranking up. So thank y'all very much for helping to recount a little bit of history of the Nazareth German Heritage Annual Festival. All right, some more people are starting to show up out here, and I've been going around and talking to a number of people and found one group that are actually willing to get on camera and let me ask them a few questions. And I believe you're out of eastern New Mexico, is that correct?
Eastern New Mexico, West Texas.
All right. Well, one thing that I have been talking to people about is how America seems to be changing in a way. We just got through celebrating our Independence Day. How do y'all feel about supporting America?
Oh yeah, man. Gotta support our country. I mean, it's a country that's given us everything.
1776, baby. We've been winning ever since.
Yeah.
But I mean, this country allows you to do so much that you can't do anywhere else in the world. I mean, this right here, for example, we're all hanging out, drinking a few beers, just listening to music, you know?
Yeah.
Can't do that in other places. I mean, you can, but not like here, and not the way we do it here, and not the way we celebrate everything.
Right.
It's kind of just, it's a way of life. It's an entirely new thing, still relatively to the world.
Now I presume that that you folks are from small communities.
Yes, sir.
And well, I have discovered in talking to lots of people that the people from small communities or rural areas don't think the same as a lot of big city people do.
I'd agree with that.
So, is there anything developing in our country today that kind of concerns you about huge populations of people living on the East Coast or West Coast or trying to dictate to the rest of us about how we should live and behave?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I believe that we all live our own lives, and you should do what it is that you feel like you should do and not let anyone else tell you how to live it. I think part of the problem is people just become too dependent on someone, or some force, being the government, to tell them what it is that they can and can't do, without making any of their own decisions based upon what they actually want out of life.
Right.
But I don't know. I think part of it is people are just too brainwashed. They don't actually read or pay attention to anything for themselves. They'd rather just hear what someone else has to say and then go around and repeat that.
Go along with whatever seems to sound good to them.
Whatever sounds good, whatever gets likes on Facebook or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's so much a people problem as it is media and other outside forces, social media and things like that.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of controversy coming up about, especially in social media, how they are basically shadow banning or canceling out more conservative voices.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't agree with that. I mean, everyone has the First Amendment right to say what it is they have to say, whether or not you agree with it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, they have that right. I do think social media is a good thing in a sense that for the first time in human history, you have you can talk to anyone anywhere in the world about anything and hear it real time, not a letter or a newspaper that's coming around once every few weeks or a month or something.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a lot of people that take advantage of that and things like that, and they try to spread false messages and just whatever they want to put out there, and people go along with it because it sounds good.
What about some of these ideas, such as defunding the police? What do you think that is based upon, and why in the heck would they want to think that way?
It's pure ignorance and just not knowing anything. I mean, because on one hand they'll talk about defunding the police, but I think I read that Biden just increased police funding across America, so it just depends on where you're looking and what your point of view is on the situation. Personally, I think it's a foolish idea. I think they need more funding and better training, but I guess it would depend on where you're at. Obviously out here in these small towns, you don't need a lot of police funding and things like that. You don't have the crime that they have in big cities and things of that nature. You're dealing with this break-in.
There's been huge increases in crime in a lot of major cities like New York, Chicago, West Coast, one thing and another. Have you seen any large rises in crime in your area?
I wouldn't say large, but as hard times come around and things like that, there is, an increase in crime and things like that. And I have noticed some, but not large scale. It seems like it's more clustered around certain points in time rather than all the time happening,
Right.
But I think a lot of it too is just the culture of the people around here. A lot of these people out here, if you need help, you go ask them. They'll help you. There's no problem doing that. But I don't know. I think a lot of it is just the culture of where you grow up and things like that.
Yes.
Did you go to SBC?
Well, do you think that their ideals should overtake some of the ideals that we enjoy and freedoms that we enjoy in mid-America?
I think they could if we let them go unchecked, but I don't know if they'll ever get what they want fully done, because people out here are resilient and they're going to do what they want to do at the end of the day, no matter what it is. So I think they're going to try, and I don't think they're ever going to get it done. I think it's going to be the next war on whatever you want to call it, war on terrorism, drugs, guns, anything of that nature. I think it's just going to turn into something like that, and it's going to be a waste of money, and it'd be better just to let people live how they want to live and do what they want to do. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's what it is to be an American. It's to personally be responsible for what you do and what you say and how you act. But at the same time, you have to do what it is that is best for you and that you want to do, not what they tell you can or cannot do. I think this last year with 2020 and the whole COVID deal, I think that's really shown that to a lot of people that they don't care about us. They just want to do whatever's going to make them profit or reelected or anything like that. They don't actually care about helping the American people. They're just politicians.
Yeah. The United States was formed as a republic of the states that have their own rights. What do you feel like about a federal government overtaking states' rights even, and dictating to everyone, no matter who you are and where you live? You need to live by federal statutes.
I don't agree with that, because when the United States was founded, it was 13 colonies. It was a small population of, I don't know exactly, but it was somewhere in the couple 100,000 people maybe, and now we're 50 states with 300 plus million people. I don't think the federal government can or should be in charge of everyone's lives. I think that's where the states do step in, but the problem is when you start tying federal funding to the states based on whether or not they will do what you tell them, then you have issues, because now the federal government does dictate what the states do, and that's not the way it was meant to be. It was meant to be where the states had rights and they were above the federal government in a sense. The federal government was just there to kind of hold them together and keep them unified. But I think it's going back to like what I said, people are just too dependent on the government being there to tell them what they can and can't do and what they should be doing. And I don't think it's a bad thing in every scenario, but I don't think that people should wholly rely on that for their daily lives.
Right.
I think people just need to kind of grow up and start living in the moment with their own responsibilities and actually deal with their life, not expect someone else to take care of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm quite a bit older than you are, obviously, but when I was your age, I had the privilege and I believe the benefit of receiving advice from older people,
Yes, sir.
and they place an awful lot of emphasis on building character
Yes, sir.
and holding to values that have proven themselves to hold through all kinds of circumstances, one thing and another.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that America is starting to lose those concepts altogether?
I think they are. I think they're starting to lose.
Someone here.
Yeah, I think they're losing their concepts on things like that. I think people don't put value in self-respect and in respect of others and private property and all that nature. But they just don't have the. I'm trying to think how to word this. The self-interest, I guess, to actually want to better themselves. They would rather just blame all their problems on someone else and make it so-and-so or X's problem rather than their own.
Not taking personal responsibility.
Yes, sir. Not taking personal responsibility, and that's what building character is. It's just being responsible for your own actions and things like that. And it's making sure that you are the person that you would want to see and that you would want to meet on out on the road or wherever. So I think people just kind of are getting away from that because part of it is that they are not having to be responsible for themselves, but also there's no, I guess, like gain to come out of it would be the way to put it. There's nothing to win by being that guy who is more not necessarily courageous, but stands up for what they believe in and has principles and things of that nature. There's not an emphasis on that anymore. No one cares to be the person who actually stands up for what's right. They'd rather just sit by and watch it happen.
Yes. Is there anything that you would like to say to the folks who live in large cities that want to see our country turn into a socialist country where the federal government becomes the overlord of everyone's behavior and thinking and
I just have to tell them that they need to grow up and learn to actually take care of themselves and not be relying on some outside force to do it for them, because one day that might not be there and they're not going to know what to do. And while it is good that there are some things in place to protect people, I think that people are too dependent on it, and they just need to realize that the federal government wasn't ever meant to be the guardian and the protector. It was just meant to kind of help guide you along as a country and to help keep you profitable on the world stage and things like that. I'm proud of you guys. It's become far more than that, though. I mean, everything you do in life is regulated or impacted in some way by the federal government. And I mean, you've already seen how a lot of that stuff runs, and it's just not as well as it could be. So to say that you want to be a socialist country after so many have failed is just foolish. And you just need to grow up. And I think that's where it should be left at on that, is if you can't grow up and realize that something like that's not going to work, I don't know what else to tell you. Read a book, I guess.
All right. So, well, thank you very much for sharing your insights on what's happening with the way that people are thinking about in mid-America these days.
Yes, sir. Well, keep up the good fight. Keep informing people.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
There's a lot of big city people that think us rural people are uneducated country hicks. We don't know what the heck is going on. We can't take care of ourselves.
Well, see, the problem with that is that without the rural country hick people, they wouldn't have food, milk, anything in necessity. Most clothing actually comes from hicks and stuff and everything. I mean, you couldn't have one side of life without the other. You know, I'm a sixth generation farmer. My family's been in New Mexico since 1906, before it was even a state. And, you know, it's a different life, but you get to see what you actually bring into the world other than just using stuff up. That's what's wrong with big cities and everything. They just use without realizing where it comes from.
Take it for granted.
Yeah. You can't have high class without the fucking people that actually makes the stuff for them.
Can't have high class without some white trash.
That's right. I like the way you talk.
You necessarily have to go to Harvard to learn how to produce excellent
I got
cattle,
kicked out of
excellent
college and I can
alfalfa.
farm better than most. Well, not. No, I can farm is what I mean, I guess.
There you go.
So, no, you know, I've got sisters. Well, my sister just graduated from Georgetown. She's doing her master's in Stockholm. That's not Ireland, is it? Is that where Stockholm is? Fuck, I don't know. But you know, the thing is, we produce high educated people too. It's not like all Hicks produce Hicks. The thing is that we're open to new possibilities because you have to adapt and evolve with how the current economical division is. And that's what right now, honestly, you probably make more money farming than having a big city job just because of price of wheat's gone up $7 in the past, what, 6 months?
Yeah.
I mean, it hasn't gone up this high since the fucking I'm sorry about cussing, it's the alcohol. The Great Depression, because we've had the same wheat price since like 55 pretty much, and this is the first year we've actually seen a big increase in it.
Yes, and that's something that the government would have a tougher time trying to squash than fossil fuels, right?
Oh yeah, you
I
couldn't
worked in the oil patch to put myself through university, and now all of those occupations are being quashed by our federal government. You know, all this new green energy.
Yeah, and they would rather get oil
so
from
they're putting
overseas.
people out of jobs.
Yeah.
Yes, and
then they wonder why everybody doesn't want to work anymore. But when you get paid more to stay at home than to actually go and work, what's your motivation to have a job nowadays?
Yeah. You think that we'll ever see a day when the government tells us to stop growing wheat and cotton?
I'd hope not. There's no way they could afford to import all of it. Because when we export to China, we add $3 pretty much automatically on top. You think about shipping and storage fees.
Yeah.
So there's no way you could. But honestly, the way the government's going right now, they probably would try. You know, they'd rather have all the Americans think that we can depend on all the other countries instead of realizing we're a self-sufficient country in the first place.
Yeah.
That's what America was. It was a breaking off from a tyrant raid that pretty much ran the whole England had Africa, most of Ireland, everything, especially during the potato famine. You couldn't really replace it now.
Yeah. Well, all right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.